Today I'm going to have a go at Monet. So we're on week 3 of the working from the Masters project. Yeah, good thing. So that's how far I got with the China one. And although I could work on it more, the bit I really wanted to explore was these sort of textures and putting some light down, then putting some darker colours over the top. That's that little bit of that. Right, so I've had a look at this little book here, and this is quite nice. It kind of goes into the details of how he built his paintings up. So moving on from the Rembrandt and Turner, moving more into the Impressionist stage, you'll notice that the paint is a lot more opaque. They don't particularly use glazes and those sort of deep sort of looks. So you're using quite a lot of just small brush marks, thicker paint, more impasto paint, what they call impasto, and more opaque. So reading the details of how he went about it, they're saying it starts with quite a warm colour to start with, quite a pale colour. So I've picked this bit of board because it's a nice pale yellowy colour. Then a wash of very light colours, so slightly pinky and slightly bluey colours. So that's the underpainting. And then from there, you can then start adding paint. A lot of his paintings, not all, but quite a lot of his paintings were painted on site, and that was another thing about the Impressionists. They're very much about going outdoors and making impressions of what they saw, rather than very detailed paintings that showed every detail. They were really about creating impressions of light. And they would have been quite influenced by artists like Turner that we've been looking at, who was very much about light. So he would probably have painted most of his paintings over a couple of different sessions, which is something that I quite often do. Sometimes I'll go out and manage to do a painting in one session, if it's not too complicated, but quite often, particularly complicated subjects, we need to sort of keep going back out and working a bit more and looking for similar lighting conditions. So once this first layer is dry, picking up my paint somewhere, I probably would start with a little bit of the sky and using a few different blues for this. So I've got cerulean blue here, which I'm going to mix with some white, and it's very much built up in little kind of dabs, little marks, something like that. And as I say, it's probably built up over a few sessions. Working this into some of the tree areas. But actually, there's also quite a lot of bluey colours and blue greys down here. I think Monet is quite a nice person to look at if you're just starting out in oils, because the drawing isn't overcomplicated. The most complicated bit is this little factory in the distance, and it might be an idea to sort of work that in fairly early on. So you could build up a little bit more there. I'll just add some bluey colours into this area here. That's probably a little bit of this greeny blue. I think already it's starting to take on the characteristics. Another quality of his paintings is that the paint looks fairly dry. It doesn't look sort of like it's all blended in. So he would pop down some brush marks like this. You can see what these sort of dry marks that you get when you're just kind of dragging the paint over the surface. And then once this paint was dry, you could put more layers over the top and they would look sort of fairly dry as well. So it's another characteristic of his approach to painting. Just going to go a little bit deeper with these colours up here, because we've got a stronger, it's a bit more like a cerulean blue, a slightly greeny blue. Work some of that in. And we'll leave a little bit of room for the cloud. And then, yeah, that kind of basically be the approach. Perhaps a little bit of work on the factory in the distance. So another thing about them is they're all quite a good size, so they're not tiny little paintings. So sometimes when we're copying these, it might be actually worth just copying a small section. And the book's got quite a nice passage on this tree, and it just really shows the details of the brush marks a lot better than the overall painting. So it's kind of put blues in there, pinks in there, these kind of yellowy, earthy colours. Then he's kind of scratched into it and used a bit of texture there as well. So there's all sorts of approaches to that. So yeah, the factory could be something like that. Probably need a little bit smaller brush for that. I think that's probably enough just to get that started, and we could kind of go back and work into that. So that's a little bit on Monet. And the other thing I thought I mentioned, because Claire was having to go doing some masts and rigging and finding straight lines difficult, so I thought, well, maybe I'll talk about some of the methods that I use for painting straight lines. Unfortunately, these are probably the worst brushes I've got, so it's not going to look great. And I did have a little practice a minute ago on that. So there's a couple of different methods. So this is a bit of wood I use. And yeah, just use that as a ruler. And I'm actually beveled that edge. I think you could do it with just an ordinary board. But I find that quite useful. So it depends on what brush you've got. The best ones tend to be something fair. Well, this one is a flat brush, so the flat brushes tend to work better. And my best flat brushes are all at home because I've been painting, working on commission. But if I do that, it might look a bit raggedy, but that is one way of getting a straight line.
That's better than what I was doing.
Yeah, that's. And to be honest, I've been doing that for a long time. That's quite a nice way of working. Let's get one of these rougher brushes, see if it works with that. I'll use the one I've just been using with the blue. So this would be particularly useful. Yeah, even like that is quite nice. That works quite well. Just an ordinary sort of brush. Thin down paint though. Yeah. You need the paint to sort of flow. So that's quite good. And that's particularly useful if I'm just drawing something out and I want straight lines. Another method I use, if I don't want the bit of wood to touch the picture, so if the painting's already got wet paint on it, which quite a lot of the time it has, because painting on is now I haven't got this thing, but it's like basically it's a stick with a bit of a spacer at the end, like a screw screwed into it, so that it keeps one end spaced out. So I can kind of mimic that by just resting on my easel, and then a thin brush, just a thin pointed brush, and this has been quite useful for things like drawing. Can't really see what I'm doing. Let's do that smile. Can't see what I'm doing. Yeah, but that's another way of working it. And if you've got the right kind of brushes, that works really nicely. So I've been doing sort of like, quite recently I was painting a building and it had a lot of kind of weatherboarding on, that sort of thing. So that was really ideal to just pop those thin lines on. And those thin brushes, the rigger brushes, they're ideal for that. Because the nice thing about the really thin, long brushes, the ones that you're going of, is that you don't make a big blob like that, because you can't put much pressure on them. It will just trail along and you get a nice thin line. So it's worth practicing with that.
Okay, thank you.
Get good results with that. Anybody got any questions? Okay. Do you want to sit here? You've got a spot there.
Do you hold the brush?
No.
Go
Go on.
Do you hold the cardboard when you straight line it? Off the...
This.
Oh yeah. You hold it off the surface, otherwise it will wick underneath.
Yeah, so doing that method, you do, yeah. You can do that, but it will, if it's wet paint, it will leave prints on it. Yeah. Yeah, so I tend to use, depending on the circumstance, I use one or the other. But